Hello and welcome to the New Age Geek channel. If you're new here, we believe in inclusive, safe people of all walks of life through the power of friendship, magic, and tabletop role-playing games. Tonight we have Investigation Check, our regular, irregular interview show where we dive into the lives of the geek creators to learn about their hobbies, passions, and the untold stories behind your favorite content. For tonight's episode, we have narrative guide for Renegade Game Studios, Heroescape lore creator and lore council member himself, the Essalim Collate. What's up, Essalim?
I'm doing it pretty good.
Good. What's going on? What are you up to? Where you been?
So what I like to do is basically a platform that just focuses on lore. As if you haven't heard it, because I've mentioned lore, we got mentioned lore a couple times. But yeah, I just do a lot of lore reviews and stuff like that on video games, my favorite games and things like that, and just talk about the narrative behind the things.
Okay. I put your pillar in the chat so everyone can go ahead and follow you on all your socials there. Is there anyone particular that you like people to follow you on most?
I'm on Blue Sky pretty often. Try to get some stuff out there. Post on Patreon a bunch of back behind the scenes. Like, oh hey, how did I get this idea? And kind of get to read that. And there's a lot of free membership stuff there too. So yeah, those are my mains.
Okay, awesome. All right, man. Are you ready to dive into tonight's episode?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I need you to paint me a word picture. I need you to put me in the time machine, take me back to little, let's go with 6 pound, 8 ounce Eslim, fresh, fresh out of the womb. What is kind of your first introduction into geekdom? Is it a book? Is it a show? What is it?
It's definitely a video game.
Okay.
First thing I can say, as far back as I can remember, Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time.
Okay.
That was the keystone of all keystones. Watching my dad play the Legend of Zelda series as I was growing up got me really into the idea of adventure as a thing, because Link was this young little dude who'd go out and fight all these monsters. And I was like, oh, I can do that too. Turns out I live in reality. So,
Well, there's no fun there.
I don't, right? It's like, I can't go out into the woods and find monsters to fight, but I still tried. If that's funny, like I did a lot of was it live action role playing as a kid with my friends, and we would pretend to be playing Legend of Zelda in real life.
Okay.
I think that's kind of
So,
really what said it.
so what you're saying is there was not a safe pot to be had in your house.
No, absolutely not. I knew where the rupees were hidden. So,
So what was it, just like the adventure of Zelda that was kind of drawing to you, or was it the way the story is told? What about Zelda as a child really hooked you?
I definitely think it was like just the way the story was told. He had this challenge where he had to save the princess, and he had to go through these different trials to get to that point, and just getting attached to that storyline or that just like that arc of you can do it too. Go through the adventure and the challenge, the boss challenges. Right, these bosses are these huge monstrous things, and he's still a little kid, and he's still able to fight them. And I guess that just really stuck to me around because after that, it was no brainer. I was always a nerd after that point.
So so you start off with Zelda and you start moving forward and across the timeline. Like what do you start to gravitate towards as you're kind of growing, and what stories do you like to indulge in as you're kind of growing older?
Oh, I definitely got into a lot of the SNES titles because that's where I grew. I grew up with SNES and the Nintendo 64. So playing those games, like if anyone remembers, Illusion of Gaia, the Super Mario RPG, Legend of the Seven Stars, those kind of games, like built out of my original Zelda like love and just having RPGs in general to play. And then of course I'm living through the era. All of a sudden, everything's starting to get 3D now. We're getting these 3D games, and I'm like, oh man! And then playing those, and then getting into just watching the growth of how RPGs evolved over time. I would get invested into it. My dad would play these games, and then when I was old enough, I got to play these games because it was just that pastime. And then, of course, so everything is just usually around the video game era, going through all this stuff like that. And then this is where Heroescape drops in, right? Because Heroescape came out in 2004, right? I was a barely fresh teenager, like really, really young, and I was able to do stuff for small income, right? I would got chore money and stuff like that. And I remember seeing this box, right? This Heroescape box, and I was 12 at the time, and all I saw was a dragon, dinosaur, Roman soldier, the World War II soldier, and they're all on this box. And I was like, okay, I need to figure out why there's everything that I've seen is just all on one thing.
I love
And
all
then
these
that's where it
things.
started. Yeah, it's like I love all these things, but why is it all in one box, right? Because genre, you always think about genre, you always think about topics. Everything has like a box. Everything has a specific meaning. But then this box game has everything on it, and I had no idea what to do. So basically, use my lawn cutting money to buy this box, and then that was it for history. I've been playing that since,
Okay.
right?
I don't know any. I've heard of HeroScape. I know nothing about HeroScape. So can you please just educate me on what the fuck HeroScape is?
I got you. So it is a expandable turn-based miniatures war game. That's the
Okay.
official title for it. I like to call it entry-level Warhammer because it is a game system that is a war game, but it's not inducing. It's not as difficult as people would recognize war games to be. Right.
Mhm.
A lot of there's a kind of like a skill ladder that a lot of people say that Warhammer has. It's a lot of complications, a lot of rules and stuff like that. And that's no diss on Warhammer. Warhammer is one of the fathers of wargaming history. They got that long title, but it's the thing that a lot of people get intimidated by is all these rules. Now,
Mhm.
HeroScape doesn't have a lot of rules, right? They actually designed this game to be played by kids, right?
Okay.
As a war game that kids could play with their dads. That was the original sales point, right? It was trying to get this kind of connection between dads and sons to play this game, and it worked out. And it worked out too well because everyone keeps playing it, right? It's just it's very, very easy to get into, but it still has a threshold of complexity where because it's a war game, you have to think out strategies and things like that. And sometimes even the easy stuff is like, oh wait, well, but if I do this, I can do this, and then you get these really cool ideas by just playing this game.
Mhm.
And what you're able to do is when you get a box, right, it comes with these hex tiles. You take the hex tiles and you build a map. Sometimes you go by the maps. They have like pre-laid scenarios that you can follow,
Okay.
or you can just do your own thing and you just throw out the tiles on the table and you play it out, and then you're able to select characters. And this is where it gets crazy, right? Because HeroScape, its story has everything in it, right?
Right.
This is a battle of all time. That's what they call it. So everything that is being pulled into this war is just, dinosaurs, dragons, robots, everything is fighting each other for the sake of this battle. And it would just get so much complicated because you're trying to figure it out. You're like, why is this even possible? And while you're trying to figure out, that's what gets you hooked. Because then you're just like, I can't believe I just did that. I can't believe I can do this with this game. And it's endless possibilities. And then no game is the same.
Okay. We're going to talk more about HeroScape when we get
I got you.
when we get there. But so you dive into HeroScape as, a young man. And
Yep.
what was it, the wargaming aspect that kind of kept you going with it, or was it the all of the possibilities that had for storytelling that was more of the hook for you?
Definitely the possibilities for storytelling.
Okay.
I got really into the background of it, trying to figure out, because again, it was the question being asked. It's like, how is this even possible?
Uh-huh.
And so my brain would try to figure that question out. And yeah, I just came up with all these like little scenarios in my head as to why this was happening and this was happening. And they would launch a new series every. It wasn't very consistent, but it would come out with expansions, and then I would be like, "Oh man, what? Now we have elves fighting. We have the
Iron Man.
orcs and we have the elves, and it's just right. You're getting all this stuff is fighting each other, and it's still you know there's more to this game than they really like every single launch that they dropped, every single expansion had something new that just like there was one that came out with ghosts and zombies, and then people would just play zombie armies, and it was just like that kind of stuff. And then one season we had the vampires come out, and then it's like it just kept changing like every single expansion. And I was like growing up with it as it was
Uh-huh.
coming out. I would see these sets come out, spend all my money. Everyone's like, why? What did you grow or what did you save your money when you're growing up? No, I didn't save any money. I was spending it on HeroScape. So
I was
even
invested in
back then,
HeroScape, bitch.
yeah, that was my investment. I was planning for it.
So is there like so we talk a lot about like tabletop RPGs, right? On
Mhm.
on this channel. What was there like our overarching narrative to this, or was it kind of putting it in the hands of the players to make that narrative?
There was a story background.
Okay.
So they did these things with these characters. They call them character bios. So they would like put little snippets of lore in the character bios. And in the beginning, those were kind of smaller. They weren't huge, but they gave you some kind of context. And the context was the neat part because you were just like, okay, so why are they fighting? That's the kind of stuff they would explain. But then they ended up hiring. There's a man. His name is Colby Dosh. Right? He's in charge of Plaid Hat Games. He's CEO of Plaid Hat Games. Before he became CEO of Plaid Hat Games, he worked with Hasbro on writing these stories.
Okay.
And then it just kind of like changed everything because when he when he got on, he started making these like huge elaborate plot details, like oh, from the planet this year, during the year of this planet of when this happened, and then everyone was just like, oh man, this is so cool. Then there was a journal being written where they called a Thorman's journal. So this character in game was narrating the events of the war of what was happening to the planet as a result of all these things coming in all at once. And he was writing all this stuff, and I was just, I mean, that I could say sparked a lot of my original passion with writing in general because it was like reading what he was saying about everything and all the worlds and all that stuff, and I just got into it
Uh-huh.
because it got real deep. It started getting deep in certain parts. Like there's some stories weren't like huge, but it was like it still gave you enough. It was
Right.
just open ended thoughts like, oh, why are they part of this war? Or why are they doing this thing? So yeah, it's a lot. A lot of got really into me.
So as you're kind of growing up with this game, what is like your next step along that journey? What do you go to do you pick up writing? Like what kind of is your next evolution along this path as this game has kind of sparked this interest in you, and what's that
Yeah.
look like for you?
So there was a funny time, right? I call it the funny time. I think a lot of people they think differently. They get really upset when they think about this time frame. But I'm like I remember it as a kind of fond experience. At 2008, right about the time they had launched two master sets. They had a good range of stuff. Um, they're talking about a recession in 2008. I was too young to really understand it, but that
Mhm.
was what was going on, and it kind of affected the game overall. So Hasbro made the decision to give the property licensing, all the stuff, the work to Wizards of the Coast at the time.
Okay.
So Wizards of the Coast took over HeroScape in 2008, and then they launched a couple more sets. And then around 2010, they were planning on launching more sets, but this time they changed the way the game worked. Instead of launching original characters, they took the D&D miniature set. Like they had a D&D miniatures line at the time. They took those characters and then they rebased them into HeroScape
Right.
bases and then reintroduced them to the market through HeroScape. And that upset a lot of people.
I
They were
remember
like,
this.
"Hold on a sec." Yeah, they're like, "Hold on a sec. This isn't HeroScape. This is Dungeons and Dragons in HeroScape." And
Right.
it really rubbed raw on people. I was trying to be like, I don't know, the middle ground guy. I was like, "Hey, look, well, HeroScape's still here, we still getting stuff." And they don't get me wrong, they were really creative. Like when they launched the Elementals, for instance, they used translucent plastic on them instead
Okay.
of just like a regular plastic, and that was like really cool looking. So
Right.
they did try to stretch what they were able to do with these D&D miniatures, but it never was the same, right? We lost like there was a lot of people who stepped away from the game because of it. And then this is where I had my moment of like just my brain just exploded in opportunity, I guess you could say, because at a certain point, because they were focusing so much on the D&D miniatures, they didn't really have any updates to the original lore. And so I was like, "Oh man, I need to figure out what this is or how this is." And I started writing a fan fiction, right? This is
Okay.
this is where this is where it starts, right? Started writing fan fiction, and I posted small portions of those chapters onto the HeroScape forum page. Right? If you're old enough to know what forums are, but like, so I posted this on the forums, and I got a lot of really good feedback. Like a lot of people were replying, "Hey, this is really good. Hey, when's the next chapter? Hey, when's this? When's this?" And I was surprised because at the time, the internet was kind of like a place to go and look things up.
Right.
I didn't interact with people online. I didn't have an online base or an online community. I just kind of went on Google or whatever and I would look things up and learn things or research things. But when I was having people reply back to me and they're like, "Oh, hey, your writing's great." That was it. That was like,
Yeah.
that exploded the potential.
How old were you at this time?
And at this time, Give me a second. I can do math. So 18, 19, I think I was.
Okay.
Just about. Yeah. Because it was right around that turn of that era. And yeah, that gave me a lot of motivation to do what I did. And I ended up creating a fan fiction about one of the Heroescape planets.
Okay.
This planet's named Icaria. I wrote all about it. And yeah, that was a good moment because just seeing what I was capable of doing, right, as a writer, just being convinced by people online who I've never met. I never met these people ever, but it was just these online names were telling me, "Hey, this stuff's great. You should keep going."
Hmm.
That was like, "Oh, then I'll do it." And I wrote a whole like narrative. I think it was like 21 chapters.
Wow.
Yeah, like I got into that and ended up just getting really into writing my, I guess you could say, denouement, like the ending of that whole chapter of my life was when I got convinced that I should write Wizards of the Coast and ask them, "Hey, can I publish this?" And surprisingly, right, they actually replied back. They said no, but they
No.
replied back, which
Okay.
was pretty cool. Wizards of the Coast took the time to send me a letter saying, "Hey, we can't really let you do this, but
Yeah.
cool, thanks for asking." You know, and I carried that letter with me
Yeah.
because I told myself, I was like, I'm not going to give up, but hey, at least they replied.
Right.
That was a really cool thing. But that all happened because of Heroescape, because of getting into the story and stuff like that, because of Colby's writings and all that. It really inspired me to start creating for myself, like
Hmm.
creating what I wanted to see. And then, yeah, the results, they speak for themselves. I was like, that was a really, really creative year in my life when I was just putting all this stuff down, trying to answer a question I knew wouldn't get answered
Right.
because it was around the same time the Heroescape got discontinued because they were trying to work the D&D miniatures line through and it just wasn't working the way they wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I got discontinued at the end of that year, and that was when I started putting things out. So
Okay.
I probably wouldn't have been online to create if Heroescape didn't discontinue. I'm not sure, but because it discontinued, that's what got me all like, all right, time to publish. And then it was all different websites, DeviantArt, all that kind of stuff. But I
Uh,
became an online presence as a result of that. So
okay. So uh, there's so many questions I have here. How does this? So you're writing fanfic for Heroescape, and don't take that the wrong. Like, I'm not trying to be disrespectful by
no,
saying fanfic.
I got you.
Um, how do we kind of evolve then to where we are today? Like, what does that process look like for you, as you're kind of like starting to find yourself as a writer, and you're getting this kind of support behind you from people in the community, wanting to hear more of this tales you're telling. So what does that evolve into then?
Oh, so there's a big gap of time between this and the modern era. But I will say that because I was able to post online and get my stuff out there, I got asked by a group known as the Custom Creators Content of Valhalla. They call them C3V, is a
Mhm.
group who wanted to keep creating Heroescape, even though Heroescape was discontinued.
Uh-huh.
And it was like a big fan project where they went out of their way to find miniatures on the market that they could rebase into Heroescape bases and then give them, stats and powers and still kind of make it look like a release. They messaged me and they asked me if I wanted to work on the fiction for their characters,
Okay.
and that was really cool because I was like, wow, I didn't even know no one like I had those comments that people were sending, but I didn't know it got that much notice to where this fan group wanted my work for their characters.
Right.
And I got to do a couple of those before everything, like, I stepped away for a while and time passed on. And Heroescape, even though it was discontinued, the fan base kept going. They kept playing the game.
Uh-huh.
They would bring it to Gen Con, they would bring it to all these events. People still kept their stuff. I kept my stuff, right? So this is why we're talking about like long period of time, all the way until like, what was it, 2015? I want to say 2015 or 2016. It's in there somewhere, right?
Right.
There's a individual. He goes by Conductor Productions. His name, Tails. He is looking for people to help him with a project, and he's making a stop motion series using Heroescape pieces.
Okay.
And so that's when I mentioned, hey, I like to do the lore. I like to work with the story. If you need my help with the story, I can give you some help. And we actually that's how we met and became friends. And then we started talking. And he has me as a creative consultant. So like from that time period, he would be asking me about how the story worked out and stuff like that. And yeah, I got really into it again still, but I didn't play it as much. I didn't get the chance to play it as much, but I did get to work on its narrative because I was helping this stop motion series come to life.
Uh-huh.
And then that launched, and then it was just really neat to see that in play because stop motion is wild. The amount of work it
Yeah.
takes, oh, can't even. You gotta. That's the best. That is the best type of labor to know what labor is because you're just like you're looking at it and you're like you did that all by yourself. Yep.
Right.
So
Yeah. You know, it's a
but
labor of love when they're doing stop motion.
it is, and I mean, HeroScape has always been this huge community thing because there's a reason why it exists again. Like there's like there's so many people who kept their stuff and they kept the game going. They kept playing the game. They kept doing that stuff. There was content being made for it, and I want to say, like with all the stuff that was happening, because it was so insistently brought up and it was something that could be seen. There was a presence there. That's why I was able to get back onto the table of stuff that Hasbro would work on, right?
Okay.
Because it was just there was that big fandom. But yeah, I got to help with 3 seasons of the stop motion series. I got to help with do the background for that. And then not much on my own side, but definitely being able to write for it for the fan group, get to work on it with Tails on the stop motion series that he's created, Tales of Valhalla, just working on all of that stuff. It kept the game alive in my perspective. And then that's when it becomes official, right?
Well,
Because
before you get into official,
2022
I do want to give us
I
he's in the chat. I want to give him a shout out for this work, Conductor Productions, right? That's he said
yeah.
worked on it.
Mhm.
Hey, if you want to go ahead and plug that, if there's anywhere people can catch this stop motion project you worked on, go ahead and throw that in the chat now. This way, you know, our viewers can watch that if they decide to.
Yeah. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Okay, so to modern day, as it is, HeroScape is coming back.
It's now coming back. See, what had happened was we weren't the only ones trying to get HeroScape to come back. Craig Van Ness, who's one of the original creators of the first 3, because this is Stephen Baker, Rob Davio, and Craig Van Ness. The 3 of them were the founders, right?
Okay.
So he got back into Hasbro, and apparently, from what we understand, he had been asking about it several times about getting HeroScape back in the market. So because there was a fan base that was still playing it, still making minis for it with the customs and things like that, and then you have the shows and everything like that, there was stuff that Hasbro was able to see. They're like, okay, maybe we can do this.
Mhm.
So in 2022, that's when they launch it. They launch a crowdfund, and this crowdfund was okay. So we originally didn't even know it was going to be a crowdfund. We just thought, they announced that the HeroScape's coming back. And we're like, no way,
Right.
yeah, wait, yeah. They showed it at Gen Con. It's coming back, and we're like, sitting here. We've been playing this game for, I think, at the point of discontinuation to now, right? About like 13 something years.
Wow.
We're just making our own stuff. All of a sudden, Hasbro's like, yeah, we're bringing it back. And we're like, no way. So it was super cool. But we did have to crowdfund for it. And so in that situation where we were crowdfunding, we decided, all the creators that we knew, because there were a few people who were putting on YouTube, there was a few people who were working on it. And we all decided to kind of band together and like help each other make videos and start posting and try to get more people to contribute to the crowdfund. And that's when the podcast started happening. That's when we started doing all that stuff. And because we had these platforms, Hasbro, they actually extended the invitation to us to do a watch party. So we got to watch it get announced on live and kind of like give our own presentation about it. And that was the first time I was like official.
Yeah.
Because there's, for most of what I've done for the several years, it's been just fan work, right? But when Hasbro reaches out and is like, "Hey, can you do this thing for us?" It was like, "Oh, you're actually noticing us. This is intense." And I made a couple videos to talk about the story, things like that. And unfortunately, so here's the thing. Unfortunately, the crowdfund didn't succeed,
Okay.
right? Because the margin, no, we were supposed to reach a certain price threshold, and we weren't able to reach that price threshold. But there was still that spirit of community. Everyone's like, hey, Heroescape's not dead. We're still playing it.
Right.
We're still playing it. Even if it's not, we can't get it official, we'll still get something done. Now, this is a shout out to in Carmine, or his name is Chris Nadeau. He used to be the product lead of Avalon Hill. He was the one that was launching this whole thing. He told us he had a plan. He was going to get this on the market one way or another. We didn't know what his plan was. A sneaky little, something he did. He pulled strings. He pulled some strings, and then that's when the very next year, Renegade Game Studios goes, Heroescape's coming back, and we're like, what? Again?
I've heard this before.
Yeah, right. No, yeah, we were just like, okay, no, you can't, fool me once, fool me twice. But Renegade Game Studios, right? They have a really good plan. They're keeping it in wraps. No one really knows what's going on. They're keeping it in wraps. But they're saying, yeah, Heroescape's coming back. Just tune in 2024 and we'll get it back. And we're sitting here just waiting, and we're just like, I don't know what's going to go on. But then that's when they drop. They launch the release. They open it up. They show us the master set. They show us the battles for the Wellspring Battle Box. They actually have stuff that's coming out.
Wow.
And for the first time, Heroescape. So this will be a 15-year total. For the first time, Heroescape is getting back on the market. And we were all kind of a part of that because we helped push it out there. We helped push the news out there. We helped push the videos. We were doing live presentations. At least it was like every other Sunday I was going live and talking about it. So we were helping get that news generated, that exposure generated, so more and more people would be interested into what Heroescape had to release. And so there's a side story that I didn't really get to mention, right? But during this whole time, I actually was the admin for the Wikipedia for Heroescape, right?
Okay.
And the way I got that was because in the past there was an individual, and this isn't no beef anymore. I promise. I'm okay with it now, right? There was an individual who had controlled the Wikipedia and was putting their own information out there. They weren't really like, it wasn't the true information about the game.
Okay, so they were using the Wikipedia page as like a fan fiction.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And so I waited until there wasn't any content going on or any posts going on, and then I went and asked for an adoption, if I could adopt the wiki under my name. And then I did, and they let me because no one had posted in a while.
Right.
And then I went and started cleaning up all the pages. Now, somehow that word came out that I was the admin of the Wikipedia. And then that's what people told everyone. They're like, oh man, so he does, he writes all the stuff and he makes sure that stuff's taken care of. He's been holding on to Wikipedia this whole time. I don't know how that part of what I was doing got into mainstream, but it somehow did. And out of nowhere, right? I'm sitting there. I tried to make contact with everyone because I was already working with it back when Hasbro was doing their crowdfund. So when Renegade Game Studios dropped, I was like, "Hey, can I talk to you all about what I do? I used to write for it, and I just explained, it's like, if you guys need any writers, let me know."
Yeah,
that's all I said. Right? It was just a casual, "Hey, I did writing for this before, and if you need some more help, here we go. This is stuff I can do." I didn't expect too much, right? But when I got a reply or an answer back saying, "Hey, do you want to write for us?" That was that was the moment where it's like the explosion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I don't know. I'm not trying to say, oh, you have to respond to someone when they're asking you to do stuff. But usually when I'm putting it out there, I'm not expecting
right. Yeah. You just throwing it out there and like literally for the universe.
Just throwing it out there. Yeah, I was like, "Hey, I do this. If you want me, I'm here." And they're like, "Yeah, okay." And I'm like, "Whoa, like, hold on."
Right. That's crazy.
That's where we end up here. Yeah, it was all the work I did was fan work, just doing it on my own because I liked the game. And then they noticed that. They paid attention to that. And then apparently not only me, but other people, because the producer told me that she had went and I was asking some of the more the people that worked on the previous edition, like, who would be good for writing, and my name came up a couple times. So I was just like, oh man, I can't believe people still like remembered me from all those years of just ranting about the story and lore.
Yeah.
But they said that I would be a good match, and so she reached out with a offer. She was like, "Hey, do you want to help us with the lore?" And I was like, "Absolutely. Let's go ahead and do that."
That's crazy.
Yep.
Okay. So it's wild. This is like So basically, you live the the typical geek stream right now, right? You're
Yeah.
telling stories, and now someone's like, you tell some really good fucking stories. You want to get paid to tell those stories? Okay, crazy. I love it.
Yeah, definitely.
Talk to me about what you're doing now with Renegade Game Studios. What does that look like for you? What kind of stories are you telling with them?
Okay. So as they have it right now, I'm part of what they call the Lore Council, and it's the three game designers, the producer, another lore contractor, and myself. And us six, we meet monthly to discuss the narrative design of Heroescape. So we just make sure that the story beats are flowing along, that the plot we have planned is going to fall into the pieces it's meant to piece. You know, we have a plan for this narrative that Heroescape again had its own story, but it wasn't like a cohesive narrative where you would expect an update every month. We
Uh-huh.
have updates every month, and so we work on that with each other. And then I also am a lore contractor, so they're able to contract out certain portions of the story to me to write.
Uh-huh.
So, for example, I wrote 4 of the biographies for characters in Boiling Tension, and 6 of them for Embers of War, which just recently is about to come out in October. So they'll look over the stuff and they'll give me kind of like material to say, hey, this is what we're looking for. This is the idea we have behind this character. Go nuts. Because it's
Okay.
like at that point, they have me try to take what they want for the character and then turn it into a narrative that would pique the interest of the player.
Okay.
And essentially, this is something I've been wanting to do for years, but now I get to do it officially. It's like my stuff is now on the Heroescape website. So if you go check the characters out, it actually says my name and things like that. And I'm just like, I still can't really wrap my head around that I went from doing fan work for this game to doing official work for the same game, 15 years later. I'm just like, okay, I guess here we are, like, and that's basically what they have me do. I review all the content that's narrative design. We talk about it, and then I get contracts where they send me some of the material they want me to write.
Okay.
So,
So what does the future look like for Heroescape then? Like,
oh, it's very nice. It's
I don't know what you can this stuff you can't talk about for
right.
whatever reason, so don't do anything that's going to get you in trouble. But what does the future look like for Heroescape? Are we looking at books? Are we looking at expanding the tabletop, or like what is the goal for what you want Heroescape to be?
So right now, Heroescape's doing really well. It's been talked about a lot, and a lot of I want to say the battle box was one of the best ideas they've had yet
Mhm.
because it came out as a smaller edition of the original Heroescape line. Because Heroescape's kind of bulky. Well, I'm the one that carries it everywhere to game stores. I know it's kind of bulky, right?
Mhm.
But not everyone has a chance to get all those tiles and get everything together. So the battle box was just like a small introduction to Heroescape, and it's been doing so well, right? They've already have another one on the way, right?
Okay.
They've talked about it, but this next one is a crossover because we're doing a crossover. GI Joe comes out next year, and
Okay.
first GI Joe miniatures game on the market that I know of.
Right.
But that's going to be launching soon, and then we have a lot more stuff that's going to be announced in October 3rd. So what they showed at Gen Con will be announced October 3rd.
Okay.
That's all I can say right now.
Okay.
But I'm like, there's a lot of new stuff on the way that's going to be launching around that time frame. That's going to be really exciting. So definitely October 3rd is the big day once my NDA is lessened.
Fair enough. Again, don't dive into whatever you can't because I don't want to get you in
I
trouble with
gotcha.
NDAs and stuff like that. How is it like working with an IP like GI Joe, which I'm assuming has a very active IP, whether for their whatever
I like
Hasbro does with that IP? What does that
right.
look like to write for something like that into this open universe of Heroescape?
It's it's a lot of fun because it brings back, that thing I've always said about Heroescape. Heroescape is an absurdist dream, right? It's an absurd game because again, how are the GI Joe getting involved? Well, we have issues with Doctor Mindbender. That's what's happening. It's like, okay, see, it's just funny that they're able to find answers and just make it, fit into the narrative of Heroescape. We got this thing is happening, and then they're going to be able to use that for the story. But yeah, I can tell because when I looked into it, I was like, GI Joe's got a long history. I
Right.
remember cartoons, but I never really got into the series. And that came out in 1964, right? And there are fans that still love it to death, and I think that's super cool because I'm going around telling people about it, like, yeah, we got GI Joe Heroescape coming out, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna buy it. And I'm like, wait, but you've never played Heroescape before? They're
Right.
like, yeah, now I will.
Right.
And I'm
Right.
like, that's super cool. That's super cool. Like, so we're getting to cross the lines between fandoms and things like that. We're meeting these new people who may have never had a war game, never played a war game in their lives, but now they're going to because it's got their favorite franchise behind it. And I think that's what's really cool with it is that we're working with these very familiar IPs that have been out, and we still Heroescape still has its original IP. It still
Uh-huh.
has its original story that we're honoring alongside this new edition. And it's going to be really, really cool because we got so much more on the way, and it's going to be so exciting to show it off when it finally comes out. But lots of cool Heroescape stuff. What to expect? Absurdity. Just expect the strangeness. That
I
oh
can
man, that's going to
already
work somehow.
imagine, like knowing
Yep.
knowing the IPs that fall under that, like with GI Joe. What is it? It's Hasbro, right? Am I missing that?
Yeah,
Mixing
that's
that up?
Hasbro.
Okay.
hmm
What do we got? Transformers. We've got
Power Rangers. We
Power
got all
Rangers. Yeah, you
kinds of
got a
funny
lot of
stuff.
things there. A lot of
So
things that can fall under that. Okay. All right.
yeah.
So that's just so awesome. So where you guys are going to be where next? Like as the Renegade Game Studios, where's Game Studios going to be next?
Definitely looking forward to the winter. So our winter and spring launches, which will be
Hmm.
announced in October. That's our big thing that we have coming on the way. So it's October 3rd is when that goes live. But
Hmm.
then October 6th is when all the Embers of War launches because we announced those during the summertime.
Okay.
Those will all be available. So we'll have, I think at this point we're going to be at 5 scheduled launches already for Heroescape, which is
Wow.
huge considering Heroescape again hadn't been on the market
Right.
for 15 years. Now we're up to 5 waves. You can play pretty standard armies. We already have we completed our first tourney. So we had a world championships going on,
Hmm.
and we have our first world champion victor. So the special prize with the world champion victor was that their name would become a new Heroescape character.
Nice.
So
Okay.
whenever that gets decided, there's gonna be a character that will come out that will have the name of the world champion as part of the character design.
Is
So
is
that's
that
gonna be.
something you guys are planning on doing for in the future again, or is it like kind of like a one and done thing?
I imagine it's gonna be the top prize winner option. So anybody that goes, wants to compete and play their way up to the top, if they get to the number one, they'll get to turn into a Heroescape character. So
Wow.
yeah.
Jeez. All right. So many more questions. I want to. Are you guys going to be at PAX U?
I don't know. I don't know if they're going to be able to do PAX U. I know because the ones that they focus, did they do PAX? I want to say they did it in the past,
Okay.
but because Gen Con and Adepticon are the big ones that they
Yeah.
focus on. Adepticon is going to be the first place that people are going to be able to play with the GI Joe set live because that's
Okay.
going to be where it'll drop around that time frame. So you can
Right.
actually you go to Adepticon, you'll be able to play it there, and then Gen Con is usually where they drop the big stuff. That's
Yeah.
our big launch days. So they show all the upcoming product. And I keep like I keep forgetting. We already announced a name for what is to be coming out during the summer, The Secrets of the Citadel, which is the next how can I call it, step for Heroescape. That's
Okay.
and that's all I can say so far.
Yeah. So many things that
But
could be. I mean, my mind goes to Mass Effect, but I won't push. I won't push anything. I won't push. Don't
right.
even make a face. I don't even want to look at you.
Hey, it's okay. It's okay. I got you. Just please look forward to it. That's all. Next year is going to be really, really cool for Heroescape.
It's my favorite wargaming on the council on the Citadel. All right, so talk to me about what you're doing now yourself. You're building out lore for the company, and you're also diving into lore for other IPs on a more personal side. What are you doing? Where can people find you? Like, what is that kind of start there? Like, what's your channel called? Where can people find you?
I gotcha. My channel's called Essalim Collate, and I usually do a lot of lore stuff. I've been able to my main frame, I guess you could call it. I would do a lot of lore stuff for Final Fantasy 14. That was
Okay.
my MMO choice. Got me stuck on that, and then I was also doing Destiny 2 because even though the situation as it is, it still has a lot of stories to it, and I got really involved with the plot line, so I would do a lot of dives into that.
Hmm.
Um, that was what I was doing in the past. I currently don't have my equipment with me for streaming, which is what. So there's not a lot of newer stuff right now.
Hmm.
But if you do check out my past stuff, I've went over Final Fantasy. I've gone over Destiny 2, and I also did some Heroescape stuff. I've done a lot of Heroescape stuff with Tails on the podcast on his end.
Okay.
That's usually what I do. Is if I find a game and it has a good storyline, I like to get into it as much as possible. The joke is I spend way too long on the game because I can't just beat things. I have to find all the secret little drops and the secret little hints and stuff like that. So the games that sit there and give you like secret reports that you have to go find, I'm spending hours just doing all the objectives so I can find
Reading
that.
every note page.
Yeah, basically. I just the lore monger, right? That's what that was a term I heard in a while ago from a friend of mine. He called me
Okay.
the lore monger. So it's just
Okay.
like I eat up all the information I can about different stories and stuff like that. And I like to just get out and explore some new stuff. Sometimes I'll play different games and be like, oh hey, what's this? Try to figure it out and be like, oh, that was pretty cool, and just move on, and try new things when I can.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Starting with Zelda Ocarina of Time and how that game kind of presented lore being, not necessarily in your face, a lot of stuff you had to kind of dig through and find. Do
Hmm.
you find that being kind of like what started your desire to read and dive into these stories? Or does it feel like it's something that's kind of like evolved over time?
It definitely, it had a part in it, huge
Yeah.
part in it, because I don't know if anyone remembers, but back in the day, they used to give little books. They were these little books that would come with the game that you bought. And if you opened up those books, it had all the little story information like, hey, this tribe is from this place, and then this is what they do. So my parents, it was interesting. There were so many books that they would get because they would buy those games. They put it in this like suitcase, right? And in this suitcase, it had all the little game books and all the little game guides and the Atlas guides and all that stuff. And I remember just reading that, just like getting into that little, like opening it up and just checking it out and reading the different stories. And Zelda was a big one because it came like there was a book for the which one is A Link to the Past, that
Okay.
one. There was a book that was like I can't. It's like this thick of just Zelda information. It explained all the original games up leading up to Link to the Past. It explained all the story for it and everything. And I just remember being so hooked to that. Just this long historical narrative between different Zeldas and how they all connected. Because we end up finding out they all did connect at some point. They finally showed us that crazy timeline. I remember when they explained how every game connected to each other, and I was just like, "Oh, this is amazing! I can't believe they actually thought this out."
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if they did think that out or figured it out like later down the line.
Right, right.
We love additive retcons. If you can figure it out along the line and make it look like you did all this time, great. You did a
Yeah.
great job. So,
So do you think that kind of like, do you think it's as a child you enjoying the lore that led you to be a writer, or do you feel like it's your natural desire to tell stories and be a writer that made you enjoy lore?
That's a good question. I don't know. I definitely liked telling the stories more because it was like when I received information, learned something, I'm like, oh, I got to tell everyone about it. That's a big thing, reason why I liked streaming, going on Twitch.
Mhm.
Uh, Being able to go on stream is like a mini show and tell. And
Yeah.
that was one of my favorite things in school was show and tell because it was like, I get to tell a story about this really cool object or this really cool thing. And so games gave me a means to discover cool things. It was like you're playing this game, you're getting into it, you're writing a story, or you're learning about the story, and then I just wanted to replicate that.
Yeah.
And I think in part it was like wanting to tell a story and then learning the story even existed in the first place is what made everything work out
Okay.
and just turned into this lore fest.
So what kind of, when you are diving into lore and like diving into stories, what do you find yourself being more drawn to? What kind of lore? Like, is it I don't know, just like, what's your favorite? Like, what do you feel like you really enjoy when you're diving into that sort of stuff?
I like backstories. I like finding out motivations for characters and things like that. You know, kind of their past histories. Like this character did this up to this point and then became this, and this is now why they are hero of the tale. That kind of thing.
Okay.
Or whenever you get into the national stuff, where you're like, okay, how did this country, this fictional country, form, and why are they doing the things that they do? I love that kind of stuff. I always like to dig into uh, fake politics. You know, like
Real
the different
politics are
factions that are
terrible.
fighting each
Let's
other.
find
Yeah.
let's enjoy the fake politics.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it's just the story because people write out factions or
Yeah.
write out different situations as to why this group is fighting each other. And learning about that was always super cool to me.
So when you are writing a story, or you're telling this lore, what are those things that you want to make sure you're including? Like, what are like the, when you're creating a world or creating a story, what are like your touchstones?
Uh naming, I like languages. I blame Tolkien for that one because I found when I found out he made his own language, I was like, I want to do it too. It's
Well,
not
I'm
as
gonna make
easy as it
two
looks.
languages.
It's he was prolific. He knew what
Yeah.
he was like. He studied it his whole life, so it was just really easy for him. But the idea that you could create a dialect or a tongue of a completely fictional concept like this, again, this is not a real nation. This is not a real group of people, but you're having them speak an actual language that you made. That
Right.
was just the coolest thing for me. So I started getting into like word roots, and that was it. I've been
Yeah.
stuck on. There's a fun little website called Etym Online. You can look up etymology, which is the root word history, and so I make up names based on the root words of what these things mean. Like I like taking roots apart and then adding new roots together. And so you'll kind of see that if you read my HeroScape stuff that I've already created. I've been taking root words and putting them together and making things up, and it's great because no one can say the words that I make, and that's kind of like, that's kind of that fun effect I like. Is like, oh, are you having trouble pronouncing the language I made up? Yeah, that's fun. That's part of
Gotcha,
it, right?
bitch. Okay, so when, if you were to kind of like reach out and speak to someone who wants to go along these routes that you have, like be this fan and kind of grow into being a professional storyteller, which is what you are, what kind of advice would you have for them?
So I'm gonna pass down the torch. That's what I've been calling it. This thing that kind of just motivated me to keep going. But the most important thing is to keep the dream alive,
Hmm.
right? Because you're not going to get it the first time. You're not going to get it the second time. You may not get it even the 10th time. But if you keep going and you keep yourself committed to that path, you never know what's going to happen unless you keep yourself committed to that path, right? Because that's the thing with giving up. It's just that's a finality, right? You give up, that's it. It doesn't get to keep going because you stopped it. But if you keep the dream alive, who knows who knows what's going to happen, right? As a result, it may not happen the way you want it to, but it can.
Hmm.
It may, right? That's why you have to keep it alive. That's why you have to keep trying and keep practicing and learning more, getting more skills, stuff like that. Maybe that be the case, but don't ever give up because giving up is one thing, but if you don't give up, who knows where that's going to go.
Okay.
So,
All right. I think that's gonna kind of bring us towards the end of our interview here. As we're getting ready to wrap up, I have my last couple questions here, so I'm gonna go ahead and ask those. First and foremost, is there any dream projects or collaborations that you'd love to pursue in the future?
so this is Renegade Games Studios' fault. I blame them entirely, right? But when they were introducing the HeroScape lineup back onto mainstream and showing off the public options, they managed to get Matt Mercer to play HeroScape. They actually taught him how to play the game. And now that I saw that he's touched and played HeroScape, I kind of want to be like, "Hey, Matt Mercer, you want to play some HeroScape?" Like that would be the funnest thing to say. Like and it's way out there, right? This is
Yeah.
this is probably unobtainium because of just the distance, but that's fine because I think it would be great to one day be able to get to a point where I could play a HeroScape game with Matt Mercer because now he
Okay.
knows how to play.
Yeah.
So we got.
All right. Has there been a pivotal moment or kind of turning point in your career that has shaped the way you approach content creation, whether it be writing or lore dives or whatever?
Uh, Pivotal moment. I know I got to meet the director producer of Final Fantasy 14 during one of the main events. I went to Fan Fest, is what it's called, and I was able to speak with him in person. And the pivotal moment for me was just how relaxed he was. He was so chill. He was such a his presence, right? It was just this relaxed guy, despite having, I mean, he's director producer. He has all this labor behind his back. He's super busy all the time. There's plenty of videos and shots of him passed out on the ground because he's tired,
Yeah.
right? But meeting him in person was such a thing because his presence was just calm. He was just, he just knew what he was doing. And we had a little joke moment because I was wearing a shirt, right? And it's my personal beef with the franchise. They have a continent in the middle of a map that has been clouded, right? So you can't see the map, right? It's been clouded for 11 years, and he saw my shirt. It said "Uncloud." Just named the continent "Uncloud Ilsabard," and I had it on his shirt when I went to go meet him, and his translator translated it into Japanese for him. So he laughs and he looks at me and he says, "Someday," and I'm just like, oh man, you can't do that. That's so unfair. And it was just, again, his presence, right?
Yeah.
He was just so relaxed, and from that moment I was just like, man, you just got to really enjoy the journey, right? Wherever you're at, and just go with it. Go and take those shots when you get the shots. If you miss, keep going.
Yeah.
But yeah, he really, for all that he does, and to see how chill he was, that was really nice. So
Okay. All right. Then I'm going to ask my last question. This is the question I always ask all my guests. This is the one that ends up on TikTok. So what message or impact do you hope to leave through your content on the geek space?
once again, keep the dream alive. I'm so serious about that. I reached a point where I was not giving up, but I was pretty demotivated at one point. And I've worked at restaurants for a large portion of my career. So that's another thing, right? I'm always doing restaurant work while I'm trying to create. And so I don't get to really create as often as other creators because I have to split my time up. But I remember being demotivated. And the only reason why I keep saying keep the dream alive is because I had explained to a guest that one of my dreams was to get into professional writing for a game. And that, the restaurant wasn't always going to be my life. That was something I wanted to make my official life. And he wrote that on a receipt that when I went to go collect his stuff, he wrote on the receipt, keep the dream alive. And that's what just kept it. Being able to maintain the dream of HeroScape, even though HeroScape was not officially in the market. There was no sales, right? The only way you get HeroScape is if you bought it on eBay, right? It went from eBay sales to actual on the market. Now people are playing it. People I never thought would play it are playing it, right? Like Matt Mashler. I didn't know he'd play HeroScape, but now that is a moment in history. That was keeping the dream alive. That was a result of that. Because if I had stopped playing HeroScape and stopped really working with it or giving up on it on the entirety, who knows where I would have been or where it would have been. But there were so many people that kept that dream alive and it allowed it to come into existence as a reality in our current era. So just don't give up. Even if it's hard, I think that's part of it, right? That's part of the journey. It's part of the passion. That's why you have to be passionate about these things because they don't, things can cause it to sputter so quickly if you don't hold on to it. So believe in yourself. I believe in you.
I love that. That's a great message for people. All right. That is going to wrap it up for our interview portion of tonight. That being said, if you have questions for our guests, go ahead and start putting those in the chat. I know we got a few already. While those questions come in, though, we're going to switch over to our dicey question segment. These are 20 random questions determined by a D20 roll. I'm going to need you to go ahead and roll me up a D20.
Okay. I got this fancy one that has a Cthulhu symbol for
Nice.
20. So hopefully it's not like going to curse me or anything like that. I praise the great old one. All right. So I roll it and then I just let it go.
Just roll it up. Let me know what number you get.
Okay, I got 11.
Okay, what is the coolest homebrew thing you've seen or used? Have you ever played any sort of TTRPGs?
Yes, I did play 5th edition in the past.
Okay. Have you ever used any sort of homebrew kind of items or things?
Yeah, we had one of my players who had never played Dungeons and Dragons in the past. Huge shout out that guy. He was super creative because he wanted to do what was his idea? He wanted to be a turtle druid, right? So he explained to me that he wanted his weapon to be a smudge stick, right?
Okay.
Because he was holistic magic and he was wanting to like cleanse the realms and things like that.
I like it.
And I remember having to figure out what smudge sticks and like how to make that into a mechanic. That was great. That was really fun because his character was super original and just kind of stood out. Had this like druidic, was taught by these orcs in the. If you've ever done Eberron is a really good campaign setting, one of my favorites.
Uh-huh.
And in Eberron they had orc druids, so he's like, yeah, they taught me how to be a druid and they taught me how to do all this stuff. So I had to do a lot of homebrew with him, but that was great. That was really good fun to implement into a storyline.
Okay. What kind of homebrew mechanics did you kind of put into that?
So we had to learn how to give his smudge stick to do any like magic, basically, because that was his focus. We had to learn all that. We had to learn his pantheon he created was based off the Hindu deities, so he had to learn all the
Okay.
Hindu deities and connect that to the different traditions that he had as a druid. That's mostly what I remember.
Yeah.
Because yeah, it was a while back though, but that was definitely one of the best fun I
Okay.
really enjoyed.
All right. Go ahead, give me another D20 roll, then we'll dive into some of these questions because we got a bunch of them.
All right, I got an 8.
If you were a D&D class, what would you be and what would your stat build look like?
Oh man. See, I don't know because I'm bouncing. I always bounce around the magic classes, right? Depending on what's my vibe. So I always played a sorcerer,
Okay.
or I always played yeah, it's definitely sorcerers, the ones I used to do. But I definitely have a bit of a love for, if you've ever heard of the arcane archer.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are really cool. Being able to enchant your arrows and everything like that. And I always like there's I can't remember if they made it official or if it was still in Unearthed Arcana. It was called a Horizon Walker. So it was like a ranger that basically protected the planes. And so they maintained the barriers between realities and stuff like that.
I think
so.
I forget what they called it. It did become official. I forget what it was they called it though.
Oh man. Yeah. So it's something like that. Like definitely a planner awareness, but arcane archer of sorts that protects the barriers of the world.
I like that. Lore master, just kind of like coming across all your worlds that you've created, just protecting them. I love it.
Yep.
All right. Excuse me. This is from Crazella. What is your favorite piece of lore that you've written?
Oh, hands down, the molten crustaceans. That was a really fun one to write about because they're lava crabs. They're crabs that bleed lava, and I had to sit there and make them sound cool. And I was just like, "What's not cool? They're already cool. They bleed lava." But
it's in the name.
I remember. Yeah, right. I remember it being such a fun, just out of, because that's the thing about HeroScape, right? It's absurd concepts. So I'm sitting there. My first assignment is to make these lava crabs sound awesome and appealing to the market. And I'm just like, oh man, I know exactly what I'm gonna do. And I wrote them out as like a causal accident. Like she was having visions and then she saw them and she's like, ooh, I don't know if those are gonna help me or not. But they actually do. And so that was the funnest part, was just trying to make these things fit the game world or fit the fact. Is like, what makes you want to draft 7 army or 7 squads of molten crustaceans? Well, because they bleed lava. There you go.
Okay. Next question is from Zella as well. If you could write for any other fandom or IP, what who would you write for?
Oh, I would love to be able to contribute something to Final Fantasy 14. Well, okay, I kind of already did, but it's not as extensive as what I do for HeroScape. So, being able to contribute something for Final Fantasy 14 would be really cool. I don't know how that would happen, but we'll see what happens.
Okay. What is it about the Final Fantasy 14 world that kind of like throws you in?
The lore creators for that game are like my kinship brothers. I the way they get into the extensive world building that you can do for a game, as well as the languages and stuff like that. That kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Huge fan of that. And I've followed their work for a while, and they kind of inspired me to do what I do with my work now. So
Okay. This is from Alex the Swan Guy. Did you mention your Final Fantasy fan magazine project yet?
oh, I think I'm losing you.
Hello? You there? You there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's dropping connection.
Okay. That's strange. How are we looking? Any better? I guess not. Interesting.
Okay, I think I have you again.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. This is from Alex the Swan Guy. Did you mention your Final Fantasy fan magazine project yet?
Oh
What
no, I
what is
didn't. That was
this?
so that was on the side. I got to work on a magazine known as Aetherflow Media, and it was a side project I got to work on in 2018 because they were asking basically the community for talent if anyone wanted to join. And I said, "Hey, do you guys need a lore writer?" And they're like, "Oh, sure. You know what kind of lore do you want to write about?" I was like, "Oh, probably about the nations or something like that." And I sent in this. The idea was like National Geographic style. You ever seen National Geographic style magazines?
Uh-huh.
Uh, some of my favorite magazines in the world because it's just like you open up and it's bright, colorful pictures describing places you'll never ever be able to go. It's like Indonesia. It's like deep in the jungles of South Asia and things like that. Always loved reading those as a kid, so I offered that as an option to this magazine company. And
Mhm.
yeah, they picked me up and they were like, "Yeah, definitely go ahead, shoot." And I was able to publish 8 articles with them, lore related stuff. Uh, I got to work with them on doing an interview with some of the world lore creators as well for Final Fantasy 14. So that was a big part of my it's like 2018 to 2020 work that I did for Final Fantasy 14, and that was fan work. So we were
Yeah,
just doing that to get stuff out there.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that brings us to the end of all of our viewer questions. Um, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me and telling me about how you are the peak fan. That's you have just completely become a writer for your favorite fandom. That's awesome. I've posted your
Still
pillar in the
here.
chat.
Still here.
Still here, still out here, killing it. I posted your pillar in the chat. Go ahead and tell everyone where they can find you, what you're doing next.
You can find me on the Essalim Collate on Blue Sky. I have a Twitch channel. Again, it is at the moment I don't have my equipment, so we're not doing anything live yet. But we have some plans for things I'm working on. And then you can also find me on. I have some YouTube videos if you want to check some of the stuff out there, and a lot of stuff like that. Just look up Essalim, and you should be able to find me on your
Okay.
platform of choice.
All right. I think that's going to bring us to the end. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. This has been awesome. It's been a great time
Yeah, thank
having a
you.
conversation with you. We are going to read out to Conductor Productions because he's still streaming over there doing what he's doing. So we're going to give him some support. I got nothing else. If you got nothing else, remember, we love you, geeks. Good night.